Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Israel strikes at dozens of targets in Lebanon following Hezbollah's mortars fire toward Israel. Israeli Defense Minister Israel warns Lebanon that if it fails to enforce the ceasefire, the consequences will be far-reaching. Iran blames the United States and Israel for the latest Turkish-backed onslaught in northwestern Syria. The fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon continues to hold despite repeated violations by the Iranian proxy that resulted in over a dozen precision strikes toward terror operatives and installations throughout southern Lebanon. France, which co-chairs the ceasefire's enforcement mechanism alongside the United States, has ramped up pressure on Jerusalem to refrain from operating inside Lebanese territory in response to Hezbollah's violations, in spite of the fact that the agreement's oversight mechanism to proactively enforce the ceasefire has yet to be established. And while French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot informed Israel that the mechanism is expected to be complete by week's end, Paris evidently convinced the Biden administration, which is no less eager to guarantee that the ceasefire holds, to ratchet up pressure on Israel, effectively relaying a message to Jerusalem that the IDF is enforcing the ceasefire too harshly. Moreover, in a blatant attempt to expand their pressure to the public sphere, both France and the United States claimed that Israel was violating the ceasefire by operating drones which are utilized to monitor Hezbollah's activities in Lebanon.
We hear claims that Israel is violating the ceasefire understandings in Lebanon. On the contrary, Israel is enforcing them in response to Hezbollah's violations, which demand immediate action. For example, when armed Hezbollah terrorists are identified in southern Lebanon or when they attempt to move weapons. Their presence south of the Litani River is the most basic violation of the understandings. Hezbollah terrorists must not be present south of the Litani. They must move north immediately. I want to emphasize, Israel is committed to the successful implementation of the ceasefire, but we will not accept a return to the situation as it stood on October 6, 2023. If violations occur, Israel will enforce.
Less than an hour and a half after Foreign Minister Seuraa pushed back on the allegations by the Macron government and the Biden administration, the Iranian proxy Hezbollah blatantly launched 2 mortar shells toward Israeli territory on Mount Dov. Consequently, during a tour of the IDF Northern Command, the Israeli military's Chief of General Staff, Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi, stressed, quote, "We will respond decisively to Hezbollah's severe violations of the ceasefire and will continue to do so. We have plans and targets ready to be carried out at any given moment." Meanwhile, roughly 30 minutes after his pledge to respond decisively, the Israel Air Force conducted aerial strikes, which the IDF spokesperson's unit said struck Hezbollah terror operatives, dozens of launchers, and terrorist infrastructure throughout Lebanon. In its statement, the IDF further stressed its preparedness, quote, "to continue operating wherever necessary and will continue to operate to defend Israeli civilians." Subsequently, early in the morning, Israeli Defense Minister Israel toured Israel's Northern Command, during the course of which he relayed a clear message to all relevant parties.
המסר העיקרי שבאתי להגיד כאן זה שהמדיניות שלנו ביחד עם צה"ל היא ברורה וחד משמעית. אנחנו נפעל בכל העוצמה כדי לאכוף את כל ההבנות האלה וכל הסכם הפסקת האש הזה, ואנחנו נהיה עם מקסימום תגובה ואפס סובלנות. אתמול היה מבחן ראשון, יורים לעבר הר דב, כאילו זה מחוץ לוויכוח הרגיל, נתון לפרשנות, מבחינתנו לא נתון לשום פרשנות, ואנחנו הגבנו בעוצמה, וכך אנחנו נעשה בדיוק, ולא נאפשר לחיזבאללה לחזור לשיטות הישנות שהגיעו עד האוהל שהוצב ולא הותקף. אנחנו בכלל לא במקומות האלה. כל מה שהיה לא יהיה.
Jerusalem's top defense official continued by relaying a message to the Lebanese government as well.
זה מסר לממשלת לבנון. הם צריכים לקבל החלטה להסמיך את צבא לבנון, לאכוף את החלק שלהם, להרחיק את החיזבאללה מעבר לליטני, לפרק את כל התשתיות, כל תשתית, לפרק אותה, תשתית טרור, נשק וכל שאר הדברים. הם צריכים להסמיך את צבא לבנון, וצבא לבנון, תחת פיקוח אמריקאי ואחר, צריך לעשות את זה. אם הם לא יעשו את זה, וכל ההסכם הזה יקרוס, אז המציאות תהיה מאוד ברורה. קודם כל נפעל בעוצמה. אם נחזור למלחמה, נפעל בעוצמה, ניכנס יותר עמוק. והדבר הכי חשוב שהם צריכים לדעת, שלא יהיה יותר פטור למדינת לבנון. אם עכשיו הפרדנו בין מדינת לבנון לבין החיזבאללה, לבין כלל ביירות, לבין הדחיה שספגה מכות מאוד קשות, זה לא יהיה.
Meanwhile, in Washington, U.S. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller addressed the fragility of the ceasefire between Israel and the Iranian proxy Hezbollah.
So what we have seen since the ceasefire went into effect is it being successful. Broadly speaking, it has been successful in stopping the fighting and getting us on a path where we are not seeing the just daily loss of life that we had seen for 2 months prior. Now, with respect to violations or potential violations of the ceasefire, we set a mechanism up to look into this very question, where the United States, along with France, will engage with the Israeli military, will engage with the Lebanese military to look at potential violations. We obviously anticipated that there might be violations because anytime, or nearly any time, you have a ceasefire of this nature, you have either claimed violations of the ceasefire, especially in the opening weeks when things are very fragile, or you have real violations of a ceasefire. So what we are doing is engaging through this mechanism to look at all of these reports of violations of the ceasefire and deal with them through the channels that the mechanism set up, and that's what we'll do over the coming days.
Miller went on to address the latest hostilities in Syria amid an ongoing push by the Turkish-backed Islamist forces in the western countryside of Aleppo Governorate, despite growing opposition by the Assad regime, backed by Russian air support and Iranian ground forces. Meanwhile, the leader of the Syrian opposition groups, which has coordinated the latest onslaught with the Al-Qaeda affiliate, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, acknowledged that they had waited for the war in Lebanon to end as to avoid connecting between the Israel-Iran conflict to the conflict in Syria.
They were waiting until it's finished because it was supposed to happen before that. But the war on Gaza, which happened, it delayed it. Then the war in Lebanon, it delayed it. They felt that it wouldn't look good having the war going in Lebanon and in the same time they are fighting this war in Syria. They don't want to have both of them connected.
Subsequently, in a press briefing, the Syrian opposition leader asserted that the war in Syria would continue until the Assad regime commits to negotiate.
أؤكد لكم أننا سنستمر هذه المرة ولن نقف إلى أن أحد أمرين، إما أن ينخرط هذا النظام بالعملية السياسية كاملة لتنفيذ قرار مجلس الأمن 2254 وصولا لتحقيق الانتقال السياسي.
Meanwhile, in Turkey, Ankara's top diplomat, following a meeting with his Iranian counterpart, stressed the need for dialogue to emerge out of the current state of war.
Son gelişmeler Şam'ın kendi halkıyla ve meşru muhalefetle uzlaşı sağlaması gerektiğini bir kez daha gösteriyor. Türkiye bu yönde gereken tüm katkıyı sağlamaya hazırdır. Şu anda bundan sonra bütün bölgesel aktörlerin ve diğer aktörlerin yapması gereken rejimle muhalefet arasındaki diyalog kanallarının açılması ve sahici bir çözüm alanının bulunması, daha fazla kan ve gözyaşının ve yıkımın önlenmesi.
While standing next to the Turkish foreign minister, whose country is known to be the mastermind of the latest onslaught in northwestern Syria, unabashedly claimed that the United States and Israel were the ones behind the attack, irrespective of the fact that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is labeled a foreign terrorist organization by both countries.
خیلی خوشحالم که بر اساس اطلاعاتی که ما داریم گروه‌های تروریستی تکفیری فعال در سوریه ارتباط و هماهنگی نزدیکی با آمریکا و رژیم صهیونیستی دارند و این گروه‌ها را با هدف انحراف توجهات از جنایات رژیم صهیونیستی در فلسطین و لبنان و جبران شکست‌هایی که در برابر مقاومت خوردند تشویق به ایجاد ناامنی در سوریه نمودند.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to encourage you, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Moreover, if you're blessed by our productions, which are exclusively donation-based and as such broadcast free of charge, please consider making a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. I'm Jonathan Hessen, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we will see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.